And so tell me about the time where you tried to enter the officers club. Tell me about that incident.
That was, okay, we were down at Godman Field, and the war in Europe was winding down, see, and B.O. Davis was transferred from the European theater to he became the head of the 477, and that was the first time we had a Negro officer. And so we were supposed to go to the Pacific Theater because a lot of overwater training, and so they transferred us up to Seymour, Indiana. They figured we'd be flying around the lakes and everything like that. But the colonel up there didn't want a Negro on his base. And at that time, I got to tell you, Seymour made Mississippi look like a walk in the park. I'm telling you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was a really rough place. And so when we got there, we checked in, you had to check in. Then we went to the theater, base theater. And there were about 19 or 20 of us. And so we did that. Then we said we were going to go to the officers club. But word had filtered down to us that we weren't wanted there, but we said we were going to go there anyway.
Right.
And when we got there, they were met by the MPs, the military police, and they said we couldn't go in because we were trainees. See, and the trainees said, well, this is the officers club, and so forth. And we were arguing back and forth, Then the colonel came down. I forget his name. But anyway, he came down and he had about 4 military police, and they had these submachine guns, 45 caliber submachine guns. And they said that we couldn't go in. Well, the first of us, there were about, as I said, about 20. And so, but in that 20 was Bill Terry and a couple other fellows, you see. All together, it was 104. But Bill Terry and the other 2, they brushed up against the military police. Just brushed up to get past, and they called that an assault.
Right. And it ended up with people being arrested, pretty much.
Yeah, well, they were court-martialed, you see, and we received LOR, letters of reprimand. You see what I mean? We received that, and that was put in our 201 file, which is the basic thing for all officers have a 201 file. And that wasn't removed until 1995 or something.
Years later.
That's right.
Almost 50 years later, yeah.
That was fighting that double victory. In other words, we were fighting for victory against Germany, Hitler, and fighting against racism here in America, and they played a big part in bringing about that change.
Right. What were you feeling knowing that you're doing the same thing that they are, but you aren't welcome in the officers club?
Well, we wanted to exercise our rights for equal access, if you will, and equal opportunity, and we were commissioned just like they were, and so it was a matter of getting those rights, and it took a little, as I say, in this case, 101 suffered in that effort, but change did come.
Right, and now I know you fought in 3 wars, so tell me about some of your missions.
Well, the mission quota from coming out of combat didn't apply to us. Normally, there in the World War II in Europe, you could be taken out of combat, out of a combat assignment after 50 missions. Well, I ended up with 82 tactical missions and 54 strategic missions before a replacement got overseas, and I was able to come home. But I became a twin-engine instructor, so my flying experience expanded. I enjoyed flying, so I stayed in. But I'd have to say, probably the reason I stayed in, when I was aged to be an airline pilot, they weren't ready. So, so I stayed in the military and did end up flying again 100 missions in Korea and 173 in Vietnam. I didn't know that, was informed a number of years later. In fact, that about the same time, the Air Force finally took action on the records of those that had been arrested. The chief of staff at one of our conventions said that I held an Air Force record for fighter combat in those 3 wars. I didn't set out to do it, but I was doing something I enjoyed.
So a lot of people look up to you.
I had great assignments and great opportunities. And we could get command assignments overseas, but not in the States, and that finally came about. So we were just doing something we were glad to do, and it turns out that it had meaning far beyond our realization at the time.
So if you were in the air and the enemy was about to attack you, what was the protocol, and did you always stick to that protocol?
Well, we had great leadership in Ben Davis, and our records established because he actually said he'd court-martial the pilot that goes happy hunting. Happy hunting is leaving your assignment because you hear there are aircraft in the air and you want to go get a kill. Of course, that's great. Every pilot would like to be an ace.
Right.
That's 5 kills. But he said, you stick with the bombers. If they're attacked, we'd go get them. If they weren't, even though there were German aircraft in the air, we didn't leave the bombers. And that's what there was, they say later, some requests for the Redtails because we did stick close to them.
Right. And so I know you actually knew the former mayor of Detroit, Mayor Coleman Young.
Yes.
Tell us about your experience. You had a really interesting experience with him one time.
Yeah, he was a feisty fellow. I'll say that. He was, I think he was the first lieutenant.
Yeah, he was very loved by Detroit, yeah.
Yeah, and he was in the 92nd, I think, infantry. And they had a real record because they shot up a town down in Mississippi, you know. But anyway, he was a student officer. And so one weekend morning, I was just walking down because we were free for the weekend. And I was walking down to get on the bus, and Lieutenant Young, he rolled up beside me. He had a Ford, I can see it now, a light green top, you know. And he said, "Cadet, can I give you a lift?" You know, I said, "Yes, sir." So I got in, and we got up to the gate. And you know, we have some non-commissioned officer there who waves you. He'll salute the officers and then wave you on. See, and the crowd was, the cars were ganging up, you know, and so. When we got up to the gate there, the corporal, he kept waving us on.
So he didn't salute?
No, see, but Young turned the ignition, and we sat there. Then he came over. "What's the matter? Didn't I tell you to go?" And Young looked at him and said, "You don't salute officers?" And he looked, and he saw me and Young, and we had different insignias on our cap. The officers, you know, like the shield, and we had a propeller, you know, we call it the gadgets, you know. And then he said, I thought you were cadets, you know. And Young said, "Well, a few expletives, you know, if you don't salute me, salute this." And he pulled his collar out because he had his bar on it. And the guy popped to him, gave a salute. And
gave him his respect.
Yes, and that burned in my, you know, in my.
You took away a lesson from that.
Yeah, very, because that's what helped me in the other trials and tribulations we had. You see.
Seeing what he did, that kind of gave you courage to do what you did.
Yeah.
Do the right thing.
So what is your legacy that you leave behind, like for the other?
Well, I think for everybody, number one, even though it isn't emphasized that much, getting an education so that you're prepared. But then the other is having the determination, the will to not use adversity as an excuse. In other words, to seek and do your best, seek excellence. So those are the things that carried us through and are still good lessons for our young people now.
So you all have built a brotherhood.
Absolutely.
Backs,
Lifelong
you know.
friends out of
Yeah,
that experience.
definitely. Yeah.
And so what was your squadron's mantra?
Yeah. Stay focused, stick to it, get it done.
Right. So that still rings true for everybody today. We need
That's
to know
right.